Hey, welcome to the dub. I'm back with another category compilation. This is part 2 of work ethic. We've got 10 categories in this one video, so stick with me. The first one, don't rely on a plan B. When writing proposals or design docs, you might have doubts about which spec is the right one to proceed with. Between two potential choices of which will be easier to program, Plan A, and which will feel more fun to the most people, Plan B, it can be tempting to approve both options and leave the actual decision to someone else. That's why so many proposals and docs say, or we could do this, and leave both doors open. But with proposals in particular, you're better off completely ditching Plan B entirely. Leave out the hypotheticals and secondary ideas. Instead, look at the whole picture. Then choose the method you think will work best. Further suggestions, they can come later. We could do A or we could do B. I understand the temptation, but on a proposal, that won't cut it. There should always be an ideal as part of the spec. From there, you can course correct to maximize cost effectiveness. That should be more than good enough. To accomplish this, you'll need to field plenty of suggestions from your team, and keep an open mind as to what they have to tell you. The proposal writer should start with the ideal, Plan A. If problems arise, you can then address them as a team. You may end up returning to what you originally thought of as Plan B, but in the proposal phase, it's important to stand by your idea and show you've really thought it through. This is a great way to build experience too. On top of all that, game directors are often expected to think about programming and dev efficiency as well. Still, the proposal is the skeleton of your game. Don't twist it out of shape. Make sure it stands tall and proud. Just like that, we're done with the first one right away. We're going to move on to the second one, which is branching tastes. I'd like to preface this video by saying the world is full of many differing perspectives. Diversity is part of being human. But today I'd like to talk about how we may be more similar when we were young. Looking at the broad group of people who play games, there's a wide variety of styles and experience within. At the very least, it's likely that not too many people play the same games the same way. Some people continue to buy physical versions of console games. Some only play one particular social game. Some play location-based games as they walk. Some play competitive shooters night after night. Immersive VR games. You've got fitness games to stay in shape. You've got meeting up with friends to play an MMORPG. Some just focus on their PC and play only indie games. It's so vast. All of these people, they play games, but the way they do it is so wildly different. They're all fellow fans of games, and yet they have completely separate styles. Back in the NES days, at least compared to now, everyone tended to play the same kinds of games. But over time, our values diversified and branched out. We each settled on the things that suit us best. But this video isn't about the past. So Nintendo games, especially the top sellers, they sell a massive amount of copies, right? Worldwide. They're frankly tough to beat. And in Japan, at least, their games are always at the top of the sales chart. So why is that? Of course, part of that comes down to their high quality. It's not like they use cutting-edge hardware or tech. All modern game consoles are capable of great expression and performance. So there isn't any big advantage there. I'd say a big reason why Nintendo titles sell well is because they're big hits among younger generations. Think about it. As we grow older, our values diversify. Different experiences, cultures, people we meet, and other stimuli cause our values to branch apart. And naturally, those branches, they get narrower and narrower as time goes on. But the base of our worldviews, the trunk in this metaphor, is very broad. Think of young people as being here, at the trunk of the tree. In a world full of diverse tastes, the market is the broadest at the stage before everyone finds their own branch. Plus, if the things we like when we're young have an era-appropriate successor, we can pass down our enthusiasm for them for generations. Having said all that, the point of this video isn't to explain why Nintendo games sell well. There are plenty of other reasons for that. What I want to say is, when deciding which among these diverse viewpoints to target, you shouldn't rely on your own likes and dislikes, but instead take a more top-down view of the market. The reason games with broad appeal, orthodox games, or even ongoing series can easily become hits is likely because they conform to the values that a large number of players hold so dear. The ends of each branch are what we'd like to call a niche market. That said, aiming a game directly at one of those may result in players really falling in love with your title, so I wouldn't suggest that all games have to target the trunk, per se. The more aware you are of the market, the better you'll be able to target it. And that's really the main point here. We're done with number 2. Moving on, number 3. Broad input, broad output. Take a lot in, put a lot out. For directors especially, if you want to be able to do your best work, I feel it's essential that you broaden both your input and your output. Input is simulation you get from outside sources. Output is what you yourself produce. I recommend you make both a habitual part of your daily life. In my case, a large part of my input is playing other games and consuming visual media. I play a lot of different games. Sometimes I struggle to find time for them, given how busy I am, but I do play them at least. And rather than play one title at length, I try to play as many games as I can. Though I always try to see the ending, I need to grasp the scope of modern games so that what I deliver can be on par with that. To me, that's a must. My output would be the things I transmit into the world. So, to list some examples, first, I wrote a column in Weekly Famitsu magazine for 18 years and 9 months. I think you could call that habitual. On the game dev front, I wrote a daily report to share info and talk about anything in that day. I did it every day. The screenshot of the day that I uploaded to Twitter was based on a similar thing I did internally with the dev team. That's another way of making output a habit. I'd say this YouTube channel is also a part of my output. You take a lot in, you put a lot out, stay active with both, and I think you can achieve great things. Of course, different people prefer different types of input. You don't need to force yourself to play games. The act of watching something can be also quite impactful. If you make a point to reflect on its various facets while doing so, to put it another way, make sure the media you consume doesn't go in one ear and out the other. And look at us, we're consuming these videos, but we're gonna keep that internal pressure high with number 4. Here we go. Let's say you're creating something from scratch, like a project proposal or other document. My recommendation to you is this: keep your lips sealed until it's finished. Resist the desire to share, and you just keep on writing down whatever you have inside. I believe in a concept called internal pressure, and I utilize it myself. Think of it like the air that pushes outward to inflate a balloon. It's pressure that tries to escape. Another appropriate example might be, well, a pressure cooker. So a proposal is something you need to inflate inside of your mind. Not so much making it bigger, but increasing its power, making the content stronger. But simply discussing those ideas can make you feel fulfilled. In other words, by releasing pressure, the ideas in your mind, they lose their power. But you can't afford to let that happen. No. Keep ramping up that pressure, giving the strength to your proposal and the ideas. make things even denser and richer than they ever were before. Of course, when writing a proposal, you can also consult with people, solicit new ideas, and work together to figure out where the weak points are. You can also brainstorm or formulate ideas entirely as a group. Still, you need force when you're writing a proposal. You need to show how much you want it. You need to make sure your internal pressure is felt. Compared to brainstorming session that you later compiled ideas from, a design document that you write without sharing a single word to anyone will burn a good bit hotter, I'd say. If you need to consult with someone, try doing so after you've finished the proposal. First, you should face inward to really hone your ideas on your own. Oh, and the same concept, it can also be applied to social media. Posting your ideas or your progress on social media will vent the pressure, which you don't want this. Endure the pressure. Let it build and build. Put that energy into your work. I suggest you give it a try sometime. Whew. Well, I also recommend picturing how people might react when you later pitch your proposal. Doing so will help during development too. Since imagining your players' reactions and what will give it strength, will give you the strength to push on. Whew, that was an intense one. We're going to be moving on to number 5. The majority shouldn't always rule. When opinions are divided about game design details or game specs, it's tempting to put things to a vote. But you should resist this temptation. There's essentially no point to it. The main idea is this. The person with the big picture idea of a project, they should be the ones directing the conversation. That's the ideal. Putting things to a vote is democratic. It's common to think if more people want something, it must be the right answer. But that's just not true for creative projects. They shouldn't be decided by a majority, because often an idea everyone was against turns out to be a lot more fun once it's actually developed for the game. Think in Metal Gear Solid 3, there's a really unique system for patching up your wounds. But initially, apparently only 4 people on the team agreed with that initial proposal. If you've played the actual game, you'll understand how fun it can be to fix up the areas that are hurt. So ideas decided by the majority, they end up being the safest ideas. In other words, they're the most mediocre. That can sometimes be the best choice, but from a team management perspective, for a game to work in the creative work, having a key figure like a director be responsible for calling the shots, usually that turns out the best. That said, the person wielding that power is expected to have a balanced perspective. If they just bark out irrational orders with paper-thin reasoning, you'll end up with something more like a dictatorship. But for the person in charge to make the right decisions, they'll need the right information. Hence, it's best if their team shares everything that's on their minds, from problems to even potential solutions. Anyone can make the wrong call when faced with the lack of transparency. Still, I do occasionally put things to my team for a vote. Here are some rough designs for the Mii Fighter's maid outfit in Smash Bros. I personally thought it should be A or B, but decided to ask what my team thought, just out of curiosity. It was so interesting, the different opinions that people had. By the way, the option we went with, it was A. I made a decision as a director to color the socks white though. That's because the brighter extremities make it easier to see a character's movements. And we're done with number 5. We've got 5 more to go. That brings us to number 6, the power of suggestion. Back when I was in middle school, I used to come in last in foot races until one day I suddenly claimed first place. And now I'll tell you how I did it. My secret. This might be a surefire way to win any competition. First, you stand at the starting line. You get ready. Then you imagine that something horrifying is closing in on you fast. It's coming. In my case, I pictured a machine over 3 meters tall, bearing down on me with a full set of rotating blades and hammers. The ground would shake with every hulking step the monster took. So when the starting signal came, I ran faster than the wind. The machine, it was getting close enough to take my legs off. Then the only way I could get away, it was by running. The mere suggestion made me run. It made me run like my life depended on it, and before I knew it, I ran through the tape. In conclusion, running away is always faster. What? What? That's ridiculous. Well, I think it is too. Still, you can't underestimate the power of suggestion. Your frame of mind is important to do anything you might want to do. But instead of setting a target or destination you're heading toward, well, how about you give yourself something to run away from? Having a deadline or other endpoint closing in on you can prove surprisingly effective. Let's say you have some work to do. Rather than thinking you can finish it whenever, I believe you'll really get things done if you tell yourself, you only have a few hours left. You gotta do it now. Though, that doesn't mean you should wait for the last day of summer break to do your homework. When I was losing in those races in middle school, I was running as if I was chasing my own shadow. That's just not good enough. That's not how you win races. No. The power of suggestion, it can work almost anywhere. Its effectiveness does depend on the person and situation, so this might just be idle chatter, but the point is, instead of trying to propel yourself toward a certain goal, you might get better results if you imagine yourself running away from a target. What an energetic category. That was number 6. Moving on, number 7. Staying true to your own concept. Game production, generally speaking, is a long, involved process. When development fatigue sets in, it's easy to start wondering just what it's supposed to be that is fun about this game. But remember, you should never stray from your original concept. Like, ever. Maybe a better way to phrase it is never lose sight of that concept. When starting a project, you'll naturally need to come up with a concept. To give a simple example, it could be the fun of sending opponents flying, or presenting a fleshed-out narrative in an elaborate story, or maybe just a thrill of sprinting down a straight path. In other words, the concept is what gives your game its appeal and direction. Even if your game isn't turning out quite how you expected, I don't recommend changing the direction midway through development. A concept is like a beam of light from a lighthouse. Come storm or the dark of a night, well, the one thing you should never change is your trajectory towards that light. You'll get lost if you do. And once you're lost, things will only get worse from there. You can, however, pick up on emergent fun during the dev process and adjust it to bring it out even further. That's actually fairly common, I'd say. Or you can always just scrap what doesn't work and start fresh. But there's a chance that doing so will mean a lot of dev assets go to waste. For example, you may have to discard things that artists and programmers have spent literal months creating. Can you imagine? You want to avoid this for a wide range of reasons. Not only will it cost a lot, but it will severely demotivate the team. The dev team, or at least the director, should never move forward with a project until that lighthouse is in clear sight, I'd say. But to be frank, with many new projects, the dev team, they won't know the game's appeal until they start making it. No matter how you explain the fun in the design docs, it can be so hard to grasp what's actually good about it. I've had people tell me after the project was finished, "Oh, now I see what you were getting at." Crazy. But you can understand this best if you try to imagine the proposal of an existing game. No matter how hard you try, you can't fully plan the fun. Unplanned elements can often wind up being a core source of enjoyment. That's why the director has to stay honed in on the project's original concept and keep the rest of the team from getting lost. As long as you stay the course, you'll be able to make use of the resources your team creates. Whew. We're back on track. Here's number 8. Be the best. Competition and abundance. This video's topic relates to many professional fields, not just related to games. I don't know if you, the viewer, are someone who wants to make games, or if you're somebody who already does. But one thing I can say for sure is there are a lot of people who want to make games. The number of games being made around the world is already impossibly large, which means the number of developers and other folks involved in making them is even larger. Whether it's for work or as a hobby, more people than ever are making games. If you're a game developer thinking of throwing in the towel, if I don't make games, what's going to happen to the industry? Well, there's no harm in doing so. Even if one person quits, there will still be plenty more, just raring to create. I'm just one of many. Whether we like it or not, there's a fierce competition going on between individuals and teams in the industry. Games in particular tend to take a great many hours to play through, which means we're all competing for the time that our players put in. These are all ways to make my game fun. Well, that's all well and good, but if you intend to release it commercially, you need to be aware of the competition. Remember, you're not only competing against the latest titles, but all of those games that are created in the past as well. There are subscription services in particular that create an inevitable competition with the past. To turn the conversation around though, think about it from a player or a customer standpoint. It's incredible just how many people are making video games nowadays, right? What a time to be alive! Yeah! We can pick what we want to play from a massive number of games and play only what we want to. We have the freedom of choice. And if we like a variety of genres, we can pick from among the best games in each. The reason these games exist to play is because somebody made them. If I can restate my own personal opinion on the matter, I know just how hard game dev can be, and so I'm deeply grateful for all the games out there. The products and services we take for granted are far more labor-intensive than anybody thinks. The relatively low prices we pay for this enjoyment never ceases to amaze me. So thank you for making all of those wonderful games. I suspect many game creators, they've played, enjoyed, and were touched by other games, which led them to make games themselves. Something one person struggled to create, it can bring joy to another person. I think it's worth remembering that the reason we have all of these incredible worlds is because people braved the competition and support with each other. By taking the leap into the field of game creation myself, I've gained a deeper understanding and awareness of why games are fun. And I hope in some small way that I can help you gain the same through this channel. Congrats, we're done with number 8. There's only 2 more to go. It's number 9. Say it, and it might come true. Don't underestimate the power of words. If you say something, it just might come true. I guess it's like a wish, but of course, even if you say things like, it'll rain tomorrow, or I'll be in the Olympics, you can't expect that to change much, but imagine you voice a negative idea. I'm broke, like, I'm running out of money, or there's barely any point in working, or life's just not fun. Every time you think things like that, and especially when you say them out loud or post them to social media, well, those ideas, they might become a little more true, in my opinion. On the other hand, saying something positive might just change your fortunes. You say, I'm in a great mood. To cite like my earlier examples, you could say, I'm gonna be rich. My work has purpose. Life is so much fun. Well, that's not what I'm here to tell you. You might just start writing me off if I just keep this up, but to be frank, talking about this in terms of changing your fortune sounds like some occult gibberish, and that's not what I'm trying to get at. No. What I mean to say is your thoughts and your words establish your attitude toward life. You can't see the difference or the effect it has, but that's precisely why you shouldn't discredit it. Or, in all honesty, I'm not saying that a negative perspective is always bad. It's okay to have those feelings. This isn't some kind of positive thinking pep talk. In some ways, a negative outlook may prove a greater opportunity for change than a positive one. If you can use a negative situation as motivation to improve, that actually might be more effective. If it feels like your work is pointless, what are some ways you can make it better? If you're not enjoying life, how can you go about changing things up? Such an attitude might push you in a clearer direction, wouldn't you say? Well, the words you speak, they tend to determine the course of your actions. If you're throwing yourself at a challenge, I'd say it's best to meet it head on and get as psyched up as possible. Who's with me? To tie it back to the power of suggestion, those who act are the ones who win. That's how you come out on top. By telling yourself, do it, come on, go! You know, you'll already start moving in the right direction. Wow, motivational talk right there. But we did it. We're at the final one. Here's number 10, echo chambers. You've probably heard of an echo chamber before, right? A place where sounds you make echo and reverberate back towards you. On social media, the term has come to refer to a phenomenon where one's thoughts are reinforced constantly. Let's say you post an opinion on social media and tons of people show up to agree with you. Yeah, Waluigi should be in Smash. This support reinforces the feeling that your assertion must be correct. But in reality, there are plenty of people who don't agree with you. Some have differing opinions and some disagree entirely. Yet all you see are those words of approval and affirmation that your beliefs are correct. You could say that like attracts like, but you're really just creating an insular world closed off from other opinions and perspectives. Social media culture is all about immersing yourself in communities that you're interested in. So things like this are bound to happen. But if you take it too far though, and you may lose sight of problems that need solving, or you may even start causing trouble for other people. It tends to happen with design ideas and reviews as well. You might even say it's an everyday occurrence, but for better or worse, that's just the world we live in today. So, now that I've said all that, how do you feel about this topic? Do you think you're gonna go in the comments and see what type of validation you need? What do you think I'm trying to say? Am I imploring you to look at the games you make from a more impartial perspective? Is it that I don't like opposing opinions, so I'm telling you this is a way that I defend myself from the negativity? Well, whatever you think I meant. If you find someone else who agrees with you, you'll likely feel validated. And if those are the only opinions you let in, it'll become, well, an echo chamber in its own right. For my part, I just brought this up to plainly state the facts. No ulterior motives. It's entirely possible for echo chambers to affect a product. You might play things safer, or you might push it further, and in either case, if you can't stay objective, your game will surely end up unbalanced. Though, if you'll excuse me for saying so, when making games, sometimes taking things in your own unbalanced direction is what feels best. It's much better than letting yourself be swayed by other people. Of course, it's crucial that you listen to your team's concerns and have flexibility to adapt to them, because there's something to be said for a unique vision and a distinctive strength that it can bring to the game. But still, it's important to strike a balance at the end of the day. And on that note, watch out for echo chambers, because they can be dangerous. But with all of that said, complete! We've done it! We've seen all 10 videos. Thank you so much for hearing me talk, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.